Hey guys, welcome back to the Bulba Squad. I'm the other member in it, and I'm going to be handling the things that are mostly financial. So videos that are very financially heavy, like today, going over this little system on how to appraise boxes and their potential growth, I'll be handling it. Whereas my partner is going to handle all of the openings, some newsletters on just happenings in the Pokemon world, just some more fun and enjoyable things. This is my forte, so I'm taking control of this. However, however, she may occasionally handle things if it's nothing that's too in depth as this. But I thought I should handle this one because it's a little complicated and you can very easily lose people on this. So this is a system I devised in order to try and predict the growth of a box. I am relatively new to this, and I haven't had a huge amount of experience. This system is very reliant on you living or being part of this set when it released. You have to be part of the TCG because there's a lot of information that is just not out there. There's no videos on it. People don't expressly talk about these variables. You have to be there and actually see them yourself. So first and foremost, we have our constants and we have our variables. Constants, like the Zard, it's just is there a Charizard in the set? If there is, if any of these get checked off, then automatically the set has a 1-up above other sets. So does it have a Charizard? Yes, then great. Does it have shinies? There's only a handful of them, so that'll only sometimes be checked off. And then Mons. Do you have good Pokemon in there? Like, do people actually enjoy these? Or are you talking about a set that is very limited on the Pokemon, and by extension, there's only a handful, or maybe just one, that people are going after. As for our variables, so this is called the spider system. Honestly, it just ended up becoming this as we started cutting variables that we realized don't matter quite as much as others. So supply is just how much of it is out there, how much was there at release, which this column will always be right at release. This column will usually be a year later if I have the information available to me. Otherwise, I'll allow it to be a little smaller or earlier if I have enough information and it's close enough to a year. This column, I would prefer for it to be 3 to 5 years, but sometimes I have to readjust it if a reprint occurs. And then later on, I will come back and I'll make it 3 to 5 years later. But as I've said, this is a relatively new system. I've been using it for a few months now, and I want to make sure that you guys understand that this is only my way of seeing things. You could see it completely differently. You could choose to devise another system. But right now, people are running around in the market using a shotgun. They're just shooting at everything and hoping that something increases. But in a market like right now, where unicorns are running around having just banging everywhere, there's plenty of them going around, that works. But when that stops working, if some of these sets are in bad spots and retrace, people are going to be left with poor positions and are going to just accept losing money. Or they're going to keep, if they succeed, they're going to keep thinking that they know what they're doing and they may make mistakes further on. Sorry, I got off topic because I was talking about this. So back to playability. Playability, in most situations, honestly, it's not quite as important as you would think. Playability, if there is none, it doesn't exactly hurt the value of the set. It just means you don't have to worry about that variable. But if it exists, you have to worry about when this set cycles out of standard. Will it cause the box to retrace? Because now players don't want to pay for cards. And, sorry. Players no longer want to pay for cards, and less boxes are going to be cracked out there. So will it cause it to retrace a little bit? So that's how playability works. Intrinsic value. So the intrinsic value is the value of the box. Not the price you're paying, but the value you're expecting back. The layman's terms is the EV, expected value. So that is reliant upon a combination of the cards you're going to pull from the box. How many on average do you pull? on average, from what I've gathered from any given booster boxes, you'll get somewhere in the vicinity of 2 to 3 full arts per booster box, and one of those will usually has a chance of being a rainbow rare. Your odds of getting a rainbow rare is about 1 in 2 booster boxes. You can usually see them 1 per booster box, but there are enough out there that don't have any that I feel comfortable saying it's 1 per 2 booster boxes. Now, deviation. Deviation is how often do you move away from the intrinsic value. How often? So let's say your box is worth $80. Out of 10 times, how many times will you not be $80? Is it going to be one time, or is it going to be 7 times? You don't know. And that's where deviation comes into play. Expectations is just how people feel about the set. Do people have this monstrous expectation like they did with Hidden Fates, thinking that it's going to be an absolute slam out of the park? And that it's going to be the next WotC, it's going to... A case of tins is going to let you make $6,000 back, these ridiculous numbers they're throwing out. Or do they think it's going to be awful, like Crimson Invasion and Steam Siege? And the reality is what actually happened to this set. All of these variables, what combined, what did it turn out at release, the year, and then 3 years? Now then, I'm going to be covering 4 sets today. 2 of them I've accumulated the information I need from people that were around during that time. But like I said, there aren't as many videos as I would like that I can actually look into that time frame. There's very few articles, if any. So most of what I've gathered is from people in the E4 Discord and forums, and other collectors who have simply been in the game during this time. So today we're going to be starting up with Ultra Prisms. I believe that Ultra Prisms needs to be addressed because it just got a reprint. And it is one of the most, I believe it's the most expensive modern set right now. Or it was, now it's dropped. So Ultra Prisms, right out the gate, doesn't have its Charizard, doesn't have Shinies, and the Pokemon was actually a very healthy mix. You had Palkia and Dialga, which were fan favorites. You have 2 Evolutions, which, as we all know, people love the Evolutions. And then you had your 2 gold cards. Your 2 gold cards being the Solgaleo and Lunala. Right out the gate, when Ultra Prisms came out, the supply was fantastic. For those of you that didn't know, there was an error that occurred when it released, where I believe it was one of the trainer cards that it had incorrect wording on it, which would make it way too powerful in the TCG. So a lot of that supply just got taken out of the market by Pokemon. So the supply right out the gate was really low, which is a fantastic sign for any investment. The less supply there is, you already have a little bit of a head start. A year later, that supply is still non-existent. If you want it, you cannot find it in stores. You have to go to the secondhand market, eBay. So, however, now we have a reprint coming. This reprint, so far, it seems as though it's going to be very allocated. It's not going to be very large. But, as we all know, that's what they said about Roaring Skies. They said it would be a limited reprint, and then as it turned out, it was massive. And even now, there are still pallets and pallets of this stuff running around. So this could very well change. And so I'm not going to talk about this. With this set, you're going to see all of this is going to be question marks almost the entire way. Because a reprint really does throw everything off. Because we don't know how much is going to come out. And we don't know how the market is going to react. Now, when it comes to playability, Ultra Prisms introduced Prism Stars. Prism Stars at release were actually fairly good. They were playable in the TCG. People used them, to my knowledge. A year later, people still used them, but they started to drop off a little bit. Now, though, we are, if I'm correct, Ultra Prisms has about 1 year left in the standard before it gets removed. So, it's not going to matter anymore in a year, in another year. So, I'm just going to mark it down like playability doesn't matter anymore. So, combining this, it looks as though there's a possibility that the box may have already was going to retrace because the playability was going to go down. people aren't going to be buying some of the cards. As for the intrinsic value of the box at release, it was very healthy. You could pull a combination of Pokemon out of this set, even a few trainers, and you could make your money back. You can make profit. You could rip it, grade it, flip it pretty easily. A year later, though, it did not exist. This set was running around way past its release price. I believe it was somewhere in the vicinity of $240 at the time. And the prices we know now, it really skyrocketed during the whole pandemic. But even at $240, the thing is, you can't reliably pull a lot of these cards. So actually, I take it back. I'd say it was neutral. You could still pull enough of the cards that you could balance out with your intrinsic value, but it was hard to make a profit. However, now, at least before this reprint, I would have said it was horrible. $525, which is an actual price. I saw the day the reprint was announced, I saw a sale at $495, another one at $515, and another one at $525. That's not including taxes. If we include taxes, I'd say the $490 that I just said, that one is looking closer to around $530. Then the other two would be at least another $40 higher. So, really high. So then, your most valuable card in the set are the two gold cards, Solgaleo and Lunala. However, the Solgaleo is running around somewhere in the vicinity of $300 to $350 as a PSA 10. We all know how hard it is to grade a PSA 10. The pop report doesn't exactly reflect the difficulty because people usually only send their best cards in. So, and then you have the Lunala, which is running around at $200 to $250. Even if you pulled one of these gold cards and you graded it a 10, you still wouldn't be able to make your money back on this box. Let alone try and make profit, because you still have to pay your eBay fees, your PayPal fees, and then you got to deal with taxes. So, also, not to mention shipping. So I would have said the intrinsic value is awful, but this reprint just hit, and it caused this box to drop all the way down to $250 right now. Will it stay there? I don't know. Well, it could start climbing up again. It might go further down. It might just stay normal. We cannot know until we have exact numbers on just how much of this has hit the market and how much is still... how much of this has hit the market. Once we do, I can come back, fill this out. We have a lot less question marks. I can make a more accurate result. Now for the deviation. Across the board, it's actually pretty healthy. All of the cards have been growing healthily. All of the cards increased in value. They just haven't kept up with the value of the box. So deviation is just fine. All of the cards, you can get plenty of combinations to hit the intrinsic value that is expected out of the box. Oh, I forgot to mention, the other reason I say the intrinsic value is a question mark now is because we could get a lot more graded cards back. If that comes in, that's going to start shifting the whole dynamic. The expectations for the set at release were fantastic. You're coming right out the gate with a playable set. It has fantastic value, very rarely deviates, and has low supply. Everyone thought it was great. A year later, people still thought this was a fantastic set. Because the supply just kept getting lower, it was still playable, so people were cracking it. The value was still pretty good, but now... So, yeah, sorry. I'm still struggling to remind myself that intrinsic value. The intrinsic value is... Sorry, I'm a little nervous, guys. So, the intrinsic value, yeah, it's supposed to be neutral because you would usually break even, which is fine because if you deviated from it, usually you would do so positive, because if you pull the gold card, you made your money back. So the expectations were good for it, but now it's uncertain. If the reprint is relatively small, the market will still view it as a fantastic investment. But if this reprint is insane, if it's massive, or if it's a little too large, it could cause everyone to just lose faith in this set. But, like I said, a lot of unknowns with this set. The reality was, it was a fantastic set initially. Then a year later, it was still a fantastic set in terms of investment. But now we don't know. Now we don't know if this set is about to plummet, or if it's gonna climb back up to where it was. Regardless, I still think there's too many unknowns with this set to safely invest in it. The fact that the cards didn't keep up with the price of the box really does hurt its position. Personally, I don't think you should be buying this box, investing into this box at anything that's $300 or above. I believe the $250 price point is perfect. At $250, you can reliably break even or make your money back. So, I may readdress it in the future once it all settles down, if anyone decides to actually ask me about it. But as of now, I would say be careful investing in it. At $250, I think it's a fine investment. Go for it. It has potential. It's a very healthy set in that it's not reliant upon one card, or even just two. You have a nice healthy mix of probably around 7 cards. Not to mention you have your regular GXs that aren't shiny, which people still enjoy. Now, I'm going to move on to something kind of on the more opposite end of the spectrum. We have Burning Shadows. So with Burning Shadows, right out the gate, we all know what's in it. It's got a Charizard. Everyone knows about this Charizard. This Charizard has been running around in this ridiculous price range of $2,000 to $3,000 as a PSA 10. However, something people haven't quite taken note of, it doesn't have a fantastic set of Pokemon. I looked at the set. I believe the next most valuable things in this set are the Secret Rare Energies and the Darkrai. Those are the most valuable things and most desired things in this set. So I don't think that's a very good look for it. So I believe Pokemon's, it's not in a great position. At launch, I would say there was enough to satisfy the demand, but there was also a little too much. You could still pretty easily find it for a while at release, and a year later, you could still find it. It was still pretty much readily available. However, now the supply was beginning to dwindle a little bit. However, if you decide to address the sleeved booster packs, there was tons of this stuff. It was everywhere. People had access to so much of it. However, 3 years later, we're in a very good spot. The booster boxes are extremely difficult to find in warehouses. There's only one I know of in the US that still has some, and it only sells them by one box at a time. And even then, it's selling them at a high price, so the stores are hesitant to buy it. And even those blister packs or the sleeve booster packs are finally going down. Remember that GameStop's had that 3-month-long sale on them, where it's buy one, get one half off, plus your 20% off all collectibles. It took that much to finally dwindle the supply. Playability, so far as I know with Burning Shadows, it never really had any. So this entire category doesn't matter. Which is great, because it means you don't have to worry about this set cycling out of rotation. That when it cycles out, or actually I think it already cycled out, it didn't matter. It didn't cause a retrace or a drop. The intrinsic value initially was fine. The Mons were a nice healthy price, and then you had the Charizard, which really pumped up that value. As time went on, this box did not increase in value very much. I believe it moved up to 120, 130 after a year. So the intrinsic value was still good. The Mons were keeping up. However, now, 3 years later, and this box is starting to really push $250, I don't think the intrinsic value is there. Because all of the other cards in this set, all cards other than Charizard in PSA 10 form aren't really able to pay for this box. Darkrai, I've seen, is running around somewhere in the vicinity of $150 to $200 as a PSA 10. But we all know that with Burning Shadows, it had that coding error, which makes it really hard to grade a 10. And looking at the pop report, which I include PSA 8s with mine because I believe 8s and 9s come out of booster packs, you have about somewhere in the vicinity of 40% chance of getting a PSA 10 for any given card. And remember, that's also including the fact that people only send their best cards to PSA if they're going to try and flip. Because if it's less than an 8, or in some cases, even if it's less than a 9, they'll just sell it raw because you can sell it for a higher price than if you sell it graded. The deviation initially, it was fine. Because the Charizard wasn't at this insane price point that just completely dwarfed the rest of the set. However, a year later, it began to show itself. The other cards were not growing, but the Charizard was. And now, the deviation is awful. Because almost always you are, the expected price points was completely offset by this Charizard. When you have a single card that, if you decide to just go off of the raw value, which is anywhere between $700 to $1,000, and then the rest of your cards, ungraded, are somewhere in the vicinity of $50, they're probably around $75 to $50, it completely throws off your intrinsic value. It makes it impossible to track, and it makes it impossible to hit. Because if you hit the Charizard, you're way beyond the intrinsic value. But if you just hit a mediocre set of Pokemon, you're not going to hit it either. You cannot reliably hit that intrinsic value. So the deviation is awful for this set. Expectations at release? From what I gather, people had high expectations. It's a Charizard. It's going to grow. It's going to sell. A year later, it kind of fell off. There's still so much supply running around out there, people didn't have faith in the set. However, now, in this market, people saw that Charizard, and people are willing to take that bet, see how many boxes they can crack before they pull this guy, and hopefully get that lottery win as a PSA 10. So, and personally, I know a couple people who have at least a case or two of this, and there's multiple people who have this. Then there's even more so that only have a box or two. Even if 100 people have just one box, that's still 100 more boxes running around. I know someone who has 3 cases of this stuff just hanging out, and I know there's probably a lot more who have a bigger position in this set. So the reality at launch, it was a mediocre set. The Charizard really was carrying this set. Other than that, it didn't have a crazy amount going for it. A year later, mediocre set. Because the Charizard was increasing in value, but the rest of the Pokemon weren't increasing in tandem with it to maintain a good deviation. And now, I'd almost go so far as to say it's kind of a bad set. Because the intrinsic value is not there anymore. The deviation is awful. It's next to impossible to hit that intrinsic value. Then combine that with how many people are going to be storing this stuff because they believe it's going to increase. What was potentially a slightly undervalued set, underrated set, now it's become a little overrated. Everyone's thinking it's going to grow into this great set. So in truth, this set has become average. If you were to take out this Charizard, honestly, I could compare this set to something like Crimson Invasion. It just doesn't have that much going for it other than this Charizard. So I think you can try and invest in it, it's a decent enough set because that Charizard is just so ridiculously valuable. But you should expect you should expect a return, an actually good return, and start seeing real steady growth. Probably 5 years late, 5 years or at least, because there's just gonna be so much of it out there. We're in this middle of this unique period where everything's growing, so we can't exactly measure anything by this period, because some things are abnormalities. I mean, just look at Roaring Skies. It's climbed its way back up to 110. Look at Ancient Origins. It's flirting with $250. Breakpoint for a little while was sitting all the way up at like $500 plus. Now it's hanging around 150 to 200. Everything is moving in such a peculiar way. I don't feel comfortable making a prediction with the time frame we have now, or with the information I have available to me now. However, now we're getting into the two sets that I am very comfortable with, that I do understand how these moved. So first, we're going to start off with Shining Legends. I want to do this one first, because I know there's a chance some people are going to get upset with what I have to say about Hidden Fates. So Shining Legends, right out the gate, we have shiny Pokemon. Fantastic. Almost every single set with the shiny Pokemon is one of the best sets to ever existed in Pokemon. Just everyone likes shinies. And so, sorry about my dog, she's just going off. The Pokemon, it was really nice, healthy combination. You have a Jirachi, you have your Rayquaza, you have your beautiful test tube Mewtwo, one of the best arts to have ever been done. It was so unique, and I love the texture. And then overall, even the commons and uncommons, they have really nice art. However, at launch, the supply was awful. There was so much of this stuff for a set as small as it was that you could get almost all of the uncommons and commons and rares in 12 booster packs. There was way too much of this stuff running around out there. Even a year later, you could easily find it at stores. Now, I still wouldn't say it's in a good spot. I think it's neutral now. Whenever I went out to search for Hidden Fates, almost every single Walmart and Target I went to, and I went to about, all combined, probably 50. Every one of them had plenty of Shining Legends lying around. Playability doesn't exist for this set, so I'm just going to leave it blank, that way I don't make this look like a bigger mess. Intrinsic value at launch, it was fantastic. You could pull a shiny, if I'm correct, the ratio is about 1 in every 15 packs. And because the packs, along the way, you could pull some other cards that were valuable, because you still had your rainbow cards in there. And you had some nice little full arts. The intrinsic value was there. You could very easily make profit on this set, because that's just how shiny Pokemon are. A year later, it was still good. This product still hasn't moved in price, but these Pokemon inside, graded or even raw, have shifted up a little bit. And now, this product still hasn't moved up in price, but the Pokemon have. Just look at the Ho-Oh. $5 Ho-Oh literally like 2 weeks ago, but now that raw I'm talking about, now that raw Ho-Oh is $20 because SM Pratt pointed out that Ho-Oh as a PSA 10 is $150. People are starting to take note of Shining Legends, because this intrinsic value is fantastic. All the cards moved up, but the product hasn't moved in price because there was so much of it out there. The deviation, it's actually fantastic. It very rarely deviates from its ratio, and most of the time when it does, you just have to open up a little more and it's going to deviate in your favor. Because just the way these cards work, they're so valuable. The expectations at launch, they were high because it's shiny Pokemon, but then it turned sour because there was so much of this stuff out there. Now, it's starting to get up there again. People are starting to take note of what this set was, which was highly underrated, and so they're beginning to try and store it, just like every other modern set right now. The reality, at launch, This was a mediocre set. The high desire for the set really offset the fact that the supply was ridiculous. Then a year later, I think the reality was bad, just in my opinion, because people just weren't paying attention to it. Actually, no, I take it back. The reality was good. Nah, sorry. I think through this as I'm doing it. I don't write a script ahead of time. I'd say the reality is still neutral. Supply is still too high, but the cards were beginning to increase. However, now, I almost have to say it's still neutral. The cards have increased, the supply is finally going down, but now the general population has begun to take note of this set. The little Timmies, as Rudy calls, or as we're going to refer to them, the little Charizards here, who just like to hop in, try and think they're hot stuff, and then go down, just like Ash's Charizard did for a while, until he finally trained and learned what he was doing. People are investing into this set because now they see the potential. They didn't see the potential a while back, but now they do. This set was highly underrated and had the potential to really start increasing. Now, because people are starting to store it, again, it turned what could have possibly been an exponential situation temporarily into what will most likely be another slow burn because people are just going to store it. But do not let that take away from the fact that this is a very solid set. I believe that if anyone is on the fence about investing in it, you should. I am personally going to increase my position in this set. I think it has high potential. Even though it's going to take a while, I believe it's a very safe investment. You can disagree with me if you would like, but this is my way of looking at it. This is the little system I developed, and so I believe it's a very solid set. Now then, we get onto the set I've been wanting to talk about. And I love talking about this set because most of the new people and a lot of the people that have not actually done the research think this set is going to be forever one of the greatest sets and just increase in value indefinitely. Hidden Fates. And right away, we all know what's in it. We got our Charizard, we got all of the shinies, we have Evolutions, the Charizard, we have Reshiram, we have Mewtwo. So many good Pokemon. They're all shiny. We have the Charizard. Supply at the beginning got obliterated. There was nowhere near enough. Now it hasn't reached a year, but we're really close, so I'm gonna allow it. I'm gonna cut a little bit of a corner. The reprint hit. Nowhere near enough of this stuff was out. Just think about it. The reprint hit, and some people couldn't even find it in stores. I couldn't find it in stores. I had to go online, and any time a single store was about to sell it, it sold out in minutes. But now, we have another reprint coming. This reprint is a lot more widespread. It's going across the world from what I know. All the areas that didn't receive the first one are receiving it now. Depending on how big this reprint is, it could heavily damage the value of the set, but it has all these constants going for it, so it could inevitably just kind of balance itself out because it's so strong. Playability, we don't even need to talk about that. Realistically, this is a collector's set at the end of the day. People love shiny Pokemon. People love the Pokemon in this set. People love Charizard. And the fact that you have roughly a 1 in 357 pack chance of pulling him makes it so that plenty of this stuff gets cracked. Even if he's essentially another lottery item. Intrinsic value of this set is fantastic. The only time I can't tell you anything about is with that second reprint. But you crack open enough Hidden Fates at the store price, not eBay prices because that's just ridiculous, but the actual $20 price point, I dare say it is pretty much impossible to not make your money back. Almost every single card in that set, just raw, pays for at least probably close to like 2 tins. So if you're talking about an Evolution, you can pay for close to 4 tins with those things. Not to mention, they're an actually easy grade. They're not that hard. By comparison to Burning Shadows, this stuff you're going to get a 10 every pack, or every card you send. It's just stupidly easy. Your deviation, it's fantastic. I highly doubt it's going to change because at the end of the day, pull rates are pull rates. And whenever you deviate from the intrinsic value, it's almost always going to be in your favor. And if it's not, just like Shiny Legends, just open up enough, it's going to either line up with the intrinsic value or be in your favor. The expectations? Oh my god. Even if this were to have a massive reprint, people are still going to delude themselves into thinking this is a flawless set. For understandably. I realize now I put X's on supply instead of check marks, so sorry about that. People are still going to think this is a fantastic set. The reality, at launch, this was a fantastic set. There was nowhere near enough supply, demand was insane, expectations were insane, prices just skyrocketed. For after the first reprint, it didn't go down, or it did a little bit, but it went up, and it's still going up. Charizards are still selling for more higher prices, Evolutions are selling for higher prices. The worst thing are the Rainbow Birds, and those have been sitting at a modestly healthy price. After this reprint though, again, we don't know what's about to happen. It's entirely reliant on how much comes out. But regardless of what it is, unless if we get a full 1-to-1 scale reprint, something on the levels of Roaring Skies, this set, it's cemented. It's going to be linear. And in my opinion, it can only really go up. It's a solid set. But we have to remember, everyone was always on the same page. Everyone from the beginning saw easy money, easy investment. There was no risk, zero risk is what everyone says. How many people have you talked to that say that Hidden Fates will forever be popular, it's going to forever increase? No. This stuff is going to be lingering for years and years to come. I don't know how much is going to be out there. Just think about it, the reprint got announced, and I believe the results for Hidden Fates tin cases, not just the tins, the cases, it went from somewhere in the vicinity of like 20 cases all the way up to like 70. Now it's gone back down because people aren't quite as worried and don't want to give up their positions, but still, that's how many cases just appeared immediately when that was said. How many other people weren't swayed by it, just kept them hidden, kept them quiet? How many others might have just cracked them open and started selling them? Which, that's a lot harder to track, so I only did cases. While it could very easily grow and increase faster, I do think we're looking at a really slow burn despite all of these great things. Like, to see after all of this calms down, Hidden Fates is a good set, but you have to buy it at store prices, not eBay prices, because it will take you a while to make that money back. You buy your tins, there's so many of them running around. But if you buy unique releases, if you buy something like that Ultra Ball collection or the Premium collection, you'll be fine. That's a limited item. It only came out that one time, and there's not very many of them out there because people cracked them because they were just so ridiculously good. And so in conclusion, with Hidden Fates, fantastic set that is just completely held down by the fact that the expectations were always so high and everyone was on the same page from the beginning. So I hope this helped you guys out. You guys got to see my system, and I hope you guys see it. Either you can disagree or you can agree or disagree with me, that's fine. Just if you're going to disagree, just remember you don't do it from an emotional perspective. Try and analyze it your own way. If you can back it up with facts, and they're actually solid facts, not based upon some emotional response or what someone told you, then your opinion is as valid as mine. honestly, because at the end of the day, this is all speculation. I am not certain. I cannot be 100% certain that this is going to happen, but I can provide all of my reasoning for why I believe all of these situations will happen and why these growths will occur. And this system could change heavily. If it changes heavily, I will make another video addressing how I've adapted it and what exactly I decided to change, why I changed it. But this system, with time, will grow stronger. As more time passes, I'm in this hobby longer, I can judge more sets through this system, I can compile an inventory of all of them, and my goal is to eventually have multiple inventory lists of these things, their histories, and if suddenly I see a pattern reemerge down the line, I can go, wait, these two look similar. I don't have the full information on this one, but it looks very similar to this one. Is it possible, or is it probable, that this situation could occur again here? And if it does, what is that situation? Is it going to be poor, or is it going to be great? I don't know. Time will improve this system. I hope this, like I said, I hope this ended up helping you guys out. If there's anyone who's just firing off in the dark, doesn't know what they're doing, you're welcome to reference them to this video. Because honestly, this wasn't made because... This was made because I wanted to help people. Because all those Charizards and Timmies out there hurt the TCG in the end. The people who come in and just have a bad time and leave, that's someone who could have stayed in here. Someone else who could have been part of this community and actually had fun in it. Because regardless of what everyone thinks, investing is fun. I love this stuff. I will actually sit down and do this for hours, and I'm having fun. And I know there's some people like that out there. But most people are going to be a mixture. Well, kind of back to what I was saying about Timmy and Charizard being bad for the hobby. If people are constantly making these horribly speculative things without any backing, and they're doing it entirely off of emotions and just impulse buys, it can throw off the market for us. It can generate bubbles. But if people create their own systems, if they decide to take mine and adapt it, then they have a direction, and as time goes on, inevitably the system has to become polished. So, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.